This is Jasmine Utupuivaha, and our group decided to do a test review of the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, also known as the Wisc 4th edition. This intelligence test was created by and named after David Wechsler. It is for children between the ages of 6 and 16. As you can tell by the name, the Wisc 4th edition is not the first intelligence test that has been administered to children. The goal of this test is to understand learning disabilities and collect an idea of a child's ability to perform cognitive strengths and weaknesses based on the changes made from the publications in 2003. Although the 4th edition is not the most current version of the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, it is relevant today because it can still be administered for children to take. If the child has previously taken the Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence exam, the Wisc 4th edition may seem like a continuation of that test. However, it is recommended by a psychologist on which test is most appropriate for the child to take, depending on their age and readiness. With that being said, it is challenging to prepare for this type of test because it does not measure skills or achievement. There are quite a few number of subscales for the Wisc 4th edition. These subscales consist of word reasoning, picture concepts, matrix reasoning, letter-number sequencing, and cancellation. The purpose of these subscales are to measure the different cognitive abilities of the child. The item format for the Wisc 4th edition is conducted response. The typical scale interpretation method is full scale IQ, index scores, and subtest scaled scores. There are 4 composite scores that come from different test subjects, which consist of verbal comprehension, perceptual reasoning, working memory, and processing speed. With information gathered from each of these subjects, it creates the overall intelligence.
Hi, this is Crystal Larios, and our group decided to do the paper on the Wisc. It is a test that is being administered for children that are 6 to 16 years old and to measure their intellectual abilities. The samples were from 355 students. That was one of them, and another one of them was based off of over 2,000 students. It did vary within each research that I did find. They were also children that were located in different states and schools. The test was to try to find out the intellectual abilities from children with learning disabilities, African American children, Hispanic American children, and it was done from, like I said, different demographics. Going forward on the methods of administration, the scores were coming from 10 core subtests, and that included block design, similarities, digit span, picture concepts, coding, vocabulary, letter number sequencing, comprehension, symbol searches. Many of the findings suggested that the subtests do show a good indicator of where each individual child is academically at that time, and can also show where or what areas they need help than others, which is really important because we do need to be able to find out exactly what areas a child needs more help in order for us to be able to help them further their education. More investigations are still needed to determine differences in the findings, as most of the findings are not based on bigger samples. A lot of the samples were smaller, and so they are saying, a lot of these researchers, that we do need bigger samples in order to really be able to make the Wisc test better for children. So that is one thing that we definitely need to focus on going forward when trying to research the Wisc testing 4th edition for children that are 6 to 16 years old. I do want to say that I do believe that this is something that wasn't given to me, and that is something that I wish that they would have given to me when I was younger. I feel like it would have helped me progress more in my education. But that is my focus on, or that is the presentation right there, and I hope that it's helpful. Thank you.
Now we are going to go over the technical adequacy of the Wisc 4, specifically the revisions from the previous Wiscs, the reliability, and the commentary and judgment, our analysis of the Wisc 4 in regards to reliability. So the majority of test items were pulled from the previous version of the Wisc 3. The changes or the adaptations that were made were specifically made to meet cultural differences for test takers. Some examples include 93% of vocabulary subtests were modified in Japan, 23% for Lithuania, Slovenia, and Korea. There's other changes and modifications that have been done. This is just one example, but most of the changes that were made were because of cultural differences. One thing worth noting is that the digit span subtest did not change at all from the Wisc 3 to the Wisc 4. It's the same. Whereas the Wisc 3 included object assembly, picture arrangement, and mazes, the Wisc 4 does not include those. The main reason why those were not included in the Wisc 4 was because they had weak reliability, stability, and validity. Overall, eliminating those subtests increased the reliability of the Wisc 4. The normative sample for the Wisc 4 was 2,200 children, ranging from ages 6 to 16 and 11 years of age. That left 200 children for all 11 age groups. They were classified based on their age, parent education level, race and ethnicity, their region, and their sex. And the reliability for all of the subtests is actually pretty high. The lowest one being 0.72 for coding and the highest at 0.94 for vocabulary. All of them maintain pretty high reliability. Now, because this is a widely used test and very popular, many have conducted studies to determine the reliability of the Wisc 4 to see if the reliability is what those who created the Wisc 4 claim it to be. One example is with the average child, with the average student. They determined that the internal consistency was 0.94. With those children who are hard of hearing or deaf, again, they concluded that the reliability is pretty high. Ultimately, our final analysis of the reliability of the Wisc 4 is that it does maintain a high reliability. Because, again, this is a very popular test, much time, effort, a lot of resources have gone into this, and it's very scrutinized. And because of this, it is a very highly reliable test, and that is the conclusion we've come up with, that the Wisc 4 does maintain a high reliability.
Alright, so with the Wisc 4, there have been several opportunities for researchers to evaluate how effectively this does indeed measure the intelligence of children. And this is being tested over and over again across several demographic groups throughout the United States and including the international versions throughout the world. And with the Wisc being a tool designed for diagnostic purposes or for more clinical purposes, in 2016 there were some researchers who attempted to determine whether a condensed version, including only 8 of the specific subtests that are part of the Wisc 4, if they would be or they eventually determined that these tests would be effective to screen for intellectual disabilities, and just granted that even in this condensed format, it would still be a very time-consuming ordeal to administer this the reduced length, but even just a portion of this test can still be an effective use for the measuring of or the screening for disabilities. However, a 2015 study did note through their research that they believe that there may be a hidden floor effect causing some validity issues to where certain low scores may be incapable of the severity may not be quite conveyed appropriately by the test due to this effect. And this was the really just the main bias that we were able to, or main issue that we were able to find through this test, or for this test, in that, or since it has been around long enough to where anything else that would have been there, or most of the other things that would have been there, have already been resolved.